Or one of my patients one another. You didn't come up under me anymore. You always used to, so I could email you.
Oh, my email address should be exactly the same. It
But
hasn't changed.
It didn't come up, so I was kind of surprised at that.
Nope, I'm still, I don't know that you can email me through my chart, but you could email me at were you trying like the my chart?
You're not on my chart?
Yep, I'm not on my chart. That's for your physicians only. Yeah.
Well, you were, and still are.
Oh, you did contact me that way once?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I usually don't get messages that way. I wonder if that changed. I can ask my IT person. Maybe
That's
is.
fine.
But I have a regular email address, which is listed on this sheet. So you've got it there too.
Come on out. Okay. Second. Okay. That's what I get. Yay! You didn't message me back. I was afraid you didn't love me anymore.
Yeah, I was seriously thinking about writing it.
Well, Kate, we're going along.
What?
Do you ever slow down?
I should, yeah. I know, so see what you
I love all the things you do and the places you go.
Oh,
She's a world
I seem busy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get out doing what you're doing just so I can be with you, just traveling around all the spots.
I have no idea how many people work on it.
Well, I don't know, you seem to enjoy it quite well. The work travel and all the different places.
I was in San Diego this week, and I was just telling you, although the weather was warm, I was so happy when I landed in like 5-degree weather, parking lot, I was happy from hotels and
Well,
This is San Diego. Somebody was born there that's sitting right where I am.
San Diego is an awesome city, and I have to say, the trip before I went to Cartagena City, and went to dinner and it was awesome. But this time I was going to hotel room and
I've actually not been back since I was 6 years old, so it's not really from
I want to give you
not really
some.
from anywhere, but I was technically born there. Where I came to be. How about now, Liz? How about now? Mm-hmm.
I think we're good to go.
Okay. Diane? Yep. Put this down. Please. I didn't want to spill coffee. It's take longer.
I go to grocery stores.
Okay.
I know where all the Whole Foods are in like a certain area of Miami right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would do in co-ops. I need the finest local kombucha. Thank you very much. Okay. So, welcome everyone to our Saturday. You said that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome everyone to our Saturday evening meeting. For those of you who are new, we meet here every other week from 6 p.m. till 7:30. During the first 45 minutes or so, we generally have a speaker discuss the week's topic, and then there will be open discussion for the remainder. Everyone is encouraged to bring any resources, experience, or knowledge they may have to share. The success of this group depends heavily on participation. Our mission is to provide resources and support to all members of the transgender community, building relationships through fellowship and understanding. There is no fee for your participation. We ask only that you give what you can, and if you cannot give, please come anyway. I will pass this bad boy around. We have refreshments and information on the side table over there. Please help yourself to that as well. Tonight we have a special guest, Allison Weinlater.
You got it, yeah.
MA CCC SLP, speech and language pathologist at Fairview Rehabilitation Services. She will be talking with us about the voice as it relates to transgender people, as well as how voice therapy can help us speak in ways that are more congruent with our gender. But before we start, let's take a moment to go around and introduce ourselves. If you have preferred pronouns, be sure to mention them as well. I will start. My name is Brianda, and I am a girl, so call me girl stuff.
I'm Diane, female, and female pronouns. Thank you.
Jean, female pronouns.
Kate, female pronouns.
Liz, female pronouns.
Allison, female pronouns.
Peyton, no preference.
Jeff, he, him.
No pronouns?
Okay. I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Allison.
Well, I want to start by saying thank you very much for having me here tonight. It's a pleasure to meet all of you and speak about the work I do at Fairview. I have to start by saying that my voice is not in good condition tonight, so I'm a terrible model, but I'm going to try to give you some information that you may find helpful. The other thing I like to start out by saying, which is kind of the elephant in the room with voice therapy relating to the transgender community, is that no one needs voice therapy. So when I come here tonight, I have information to share, but I'm not advocating for services for anyone. This is only for anyone who might be interested in learning how to care for their voice if they are planning to make voice changes. So I like to make that really clear. This is not for everyone. It's really only for people who are interested. No one has to or should feel pressured at all to change their voice as they transition. It's really up to the particular person. So I like to say that to right away start things off. When we talk about treatment for voice changes, what we typically talk about is we start by doing a lot of education. What exactly makes a voice sound masculine or what makes a voice sound feminine? And it's a lot more nuanced than just, is my pitch high or is it low? I handed out a form on our transgender voice therapy at Fairview, and I'm not going to read through it, but I am going to note there's a couple paragraphs under gender and voice, and it kind of highlights the areas of voice that we perceive as markers of gender. So pitch is when we're talking about how high or low a voice is, but that really is not the only thing. There are many other aspects of voices and the way we communicate, whether it's verbally by what we say or through our body language or our posture, that all falls in this idea of communicating a gender. And so for some people, they find it can be helpful to try to learn some techniques that might make their gender and voice match more or be more congruent. But not, like I said, not everyone is interested in this. So I'll just briefly kind of outline those areas just to kind of lay some groundwork. But pitch is certainly one part of it. So how high a voice is and how low a voice is. And when I talk about these markers, it's, it seems kind of like, well, is this just a stereotype or what is this based on? But they've actually done research. So speech pathologists have done research and voice specialists have done research where they'll play audio clips to people and they listen and they decide or they rate how masculine or how feminine a voice sounds. And there is kind of a window of pitch where a certain kind of low level of pitch up to however high is kind of an androgynous range where a listener might say, I can't really tell if that's a man, I can't tell if it's a woman. And so often in my treatment, that's kind of what we shoot for is, let's shoot for an androgynous range, and then you can let your words or your dress or your affect, whatever else about you, fill in the rest of the picture. Because that's generally a safe and healthy place to get the voice to, especially for someone who's just trying to make some changes. And then also with pitch, keep in mind there are plenty of cisgender women who have very low voices, and there are cisgender men who have high voices. So our bodies, actually, the shape of our bodies really influence how much you can really do with the voice. But there really is a lot you can do if you put the effort in. But generally, taller bodies tend to have larger anatomy. And I also handed out a picture of the voice anatomy. And when we have longer, like our larynx is bigger, our vocal folds are longer, we tend to have a lower voice. So some of it is really just based on the physical size of your body, and there are some limitations. So another part of my treatment is helping someone set realistic goals. If you're a very tall person with a very large anatomy, is it realistic that you're going to get the voice of a cisgender woman who's 4'11", who's smaller and more compact? So helping kind of set, what's a realistic goal is really important too at the outset of treatment if someone does that. We talk about pitch. Resonance is another key part of our voice. So resonance, for those of you who've played instruments, is how well kind of sound rings in your body. When we try to either go too low or too high with our voice, we sometimes lose that rich ringing quality that gives a voice its depth. And the voice can kind of sound like high or just airy and dry. And so it's really important to learn how to change your pitch if that's what you want to do, but then also keeping a rich resonance in the voice. Intonation is another area, so that's kind of our pattern of how we talk. You know, are we going up on questions at the end? What do you like to do? Where are we going? Questions, you know, moving our pitch around as we talk. And there's not as much evidence when we look at straight, you know, when people listen to samples of speech, if they can mark a voice as feminine or masculine just based on intonation. But there are patterns that suggest women tend to use, or cisgender females tend to speak with a certain intonation pattern versus cisgender males. And so learning those kind of ins and outs of how your intonation can impact the way your voice is perceived, it can be very helpful to someone who is making a transition. Another area I talk about and treat is how fast someone talks or how slow they talk, how loudly they talk or how quietly they talk. These are all things that can add masculinity or femininity to the voice. Articulation is another one. So how we shape our words, you know, whether we kind of mumble through our speech or if we talk in a really light, clear way with each sound clearly enunciated. These are things that can help a listener decide, you know, what gender they think they're hearing when they listen to someone speaking. Another area are just pragmatics. We talk about, you know, social rules of communication. There are some rules where, you know, cisgender female speakers might do something one way in a situation where a cisgender male speaker might do it differently. And so trying to learn what those differences are and how you can kind of pick things up and decide if you want to use those differences or not is a big part of treatment too. And then lastly, I already kind of mentioned earlier, but nonverbal communication. So what does our body posture and our use of hands and when we're talking, the way we move our head, if we're nodding or doing that or smiling as we talk and listen, these are really subtle things that can do a lot to change the perception of the gender of the person who's communicating. And all of these things, I kind of present them to my patients and say, this is a lot of information. Take what you think you would use, because there are very, very many examples of people who are on, you know, either gender spectrum who don't use these things that might be more typical of their gender. So it's kind of a process of educating and then helping a patient decide, I think I want to try doing that. Or I think it might be helpful to do that. Or I saw someone who does that. I really like that. How do I do that? And so kind of learning what those things are so that you can become a voice expert and a communication expert. And I find a lot of my patients say like, wow, I can eavesdrop on people in restaurants and pick up on what, I thought it was a male speaking, but then because of X, Y, and Z, but then I realized it was actually the articulation or something else that helped kind of change their perception of that voice. Another very large part of treatment is learning how to take care of your voice. So like I said, I'm a terrible student of voice today because I have a hoarse voice. But the reality is if you try to modify your voice without doing it in a healthy, safe way, you can damage your vocal folds and it can be permanent. So a big part of my treatment is learning how to take care of your voice. And I handed out a little yellow sheet that says tips for healthy voicing. So this is kind of a generic one-size-fits-all, but just general things that you can do to take care of your voice. This is for anyone who talks anytime. It's not for transgender patients. It's just across the board. These are good strategies to help keep your voice, smooth and clear and not hoarse and kind of gravelly like I sound tonight. So things that are mentioned on here, drinking lots of fluids. This is good for all of our voices. The vocal muscle is a tissue, a soft tissue in your body, just like, the inside of your mouth or your lips. And if you're dry, that voice muscle will be dry. And in our drawing here, the voice is represented by this kind of white muscle. It's supposed to be really fluid, really clear, and when it's well moisturized, it can vibrate really in a beautiful way. So if you dry it out, either through not enough hydration or maybe drinking too much caffeine can sometimes do it. Dry environments here in Minnesota get so dry in the winter, so using a humidifier at home will help keep your voice really smooth and working well. Drinking lots and lots of water. Avoiding smoking. Smoking will dry that out. So just learning to take really good care of that voice muscle. I mentioned do not smoke. Really, it's just not good for the voice, so I can't approve that. Don't abuse or misuse your voice. So one of the questions I'll ask is, do you have any hobbies where you do a lot of shouting? And if someone's a big sports fan, for example, that can be a bit of a no-no for the voice because any shouting is not good for your voice. Someone at home is not happy with that, maybe. Really not doing a lot of shouting or talking. If some people work in loud environments like a factory, for example, where there's a lot of background noise and you have to do loud talking to be heard. Those would be situations, if you can't avoid it, I might recommend getting like a little personal amplifier so that you can still talk at your normal volume but be heard. Avoiding lots of shouting, that puts a lot of strain on the voice. Lots of throat clearing can be bad. So if you're a chronic kind of person, what you're doing is you're taking those smooth, very fragile muscles and you're essentially kind of slapping them together. So whether you're doing it because you might have some reflux issues and it causes a little bit of phlegm in the throat, or even people with allergies do a bit more throat clearing because they've got more drainage, or if it's just a habit, some of us form it as kind of a nervous tic. So watching that and making sure you're not doing a lot of all day long, which can be a really hard habit to kick if it's something you've done for a very long time. When you are sick, and this is what I did wrong, I was sick and I kept using my voice. And in my job, I talk for at least 7 hours a day. So when I was sick, I kept talking and then I lost my voice and now I'm still recovering. So even tonight, once I'm done speaking, I have to just turn my voice off because I'm still in the recovery mode. But what can happen is you kind of fall in a cycle. And once you injure your voice, it's easier to injure it again and again so that every time you're sick, you're going to be losing your voice. Now, a transgender patient may be more at risk at this of all these issues because voice modifying, so moving your pitch or changing the way you talk, can put your muscles at higher risk of injury. So learning how to exercise the voice to change the pitch in a healthy, safe way can be very helpful in preventing these type of cyclical injuries. And I mentioned too, but I'll say it again because it's really important to know that injury to the voice can be permanent. And for someone who's trying to raise their pitch, for example, if you develop like nodules or permanent, issues with your voice, it can permanently drop your pitch. So it really would work in the opposite direction of where you might want to be moving with your voice. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I went through it kind of fast, but how about, is now an okay time to open up if anyone has questions about what this treatment might entail or about your voice in general?
Absolutely. So we will open it up to questions.
And keep in mind that both Diane and I have gone to her as a patient, so we have experience on the patient side too. One of my biggest help, I'm able to talk most of the time more feminine. So it wasn't a total downfall, but like at work we have a new person, she didn't know I was transgender, she just thought I was female. We made it through most of the day, and then all of a sudden I kind of go like this. Gives me this look like, what was that?
Mm-hmm.
So, I need a lot more work. My kids keep telling me, female. The other thing my wife said would help though is some of my, the way I use my body language. That really helped in therapy. Instead of big, huge points, little points helped a lot. So thank you on that. recommend it for most people who are transgender, just to go through and even if it's not to change it drastically, just to modify it and to take care of it, would be well worth the time. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And you made a good point. It takes a lot of work, and it's a lifelong process because our voices change as we age. And so you are constantly having to keep up with the natural changes to your voice and having enough stamina, like you said, to have that voice work for you all day long and not have those drops. And really, the way the brain learns to do something like that, it's really like it's a motor, you're relearning the motor plan for speech. And so that does not happen easily. It takes, thousands and thousands of hours, really, to get it down. So it's a challenge. It's not an easy process by any means.
So those are become just permanent, just situational and just like click in.
That is the goal. So for someone who really commits and says, I'm going to use this voice all the time, they will get to a point where it's almost hard to find that older voice. But it takes a lot of work and years, truly, of working on it.
Yeah, situational is a buzzword in my head right now because I think what I struggle with right now is situational changes where, if I'm with people I'm comfortable with, then my voice is closer to what I want it to be than what it has been all for 43 years of my life. But then when I'm around my kids and my ex or on the phone with coworkers, then I just slip back into this sound that's more like what it used to be.
And yeah, that's a great point too. Another thing people will often say is like when they're stressed or really happy or really angry. So those emotional instances can then bring out the voice that they are not wanting to use as often. So it's a challenge, it really is. And you have those relationships and you have a voice attached to those relationships. So it's very easy to slip into that voice. Absolutely. That's a big challenge.
Does emotion pop it off? Like listening all day long and just listening? Like if, roommate, you're same gender and just listening.
That's an interesting idea. I do often tell my patients, you are going to be a voice detective. Go out and start really listening. And my goal is if they know a lot about how the voice works, then they can really listen in a way where they'll say, oh, that voice is high, but the resonance isn't there. Or that voice is, too low and too gravelly, and they must be straining. So really wanting the person to become kind of a voice expert, because it is like your voice is the voice of a performer. I mean, you're turning a voice on when you wake up and turning it off at the end of the day, just like a singer or an actor or a journalist might do. So you have to kind of treat yourself like a professional voice user in that way. But I think that's absolutely having a model and having someone you can practice with too. Because if there's no place to practice, then you don't really get a chance to try it out and get used to the feeling of it.
That was my biggest problem. I'm not with enough people, especially okay, I work anywhere from 10 to 12 hour days, that's my days, and I work about 5 days a week. And I think we have 6 or 8 women in the plant, and most of them don't talk to me or associate with me. So I'm listening to a lot of guys, and it's very noisy. And when I say, Tom, come here, he just keeps, but if I go, hey, Tom turns around, so it's really hard to get anyone's attention when I use my higher voice. So it's easier for me to slip into, if we were in a setting like this or an office setting, it would be a lot easier for me to talk like this more and more, and it would become habit. But considering my situation and where I work, it doesn't really happen. So I need a lot more training, but of course that doesn't get covered. So it's I think your program needs to be longer for certain people, is my opinion, but because I think I made huge strides, but I'm not quite there.
Yeah, and it's when someone completes the program, it's not like the door shuts. It's always, if you need to come back for touch-ups, that's perfectly fine. A lot of people who just have any other type of voice disorder would come back again when they need. So you're always welcome to come back again.
for my answer for yours, I don't know if it's not that I can't get to my old voice, but if I've been talking during the day, I cannot get to my old voice. It's just, if nothing else, the muscles I can't relax them enough to get down to what I used to be able to speak like, which was, I was trying to be funny and try to use my old voice, and I just couldn't relax enough to get it down. So it does at least, and I've only been doing it, was it 6 months ago or something, it's some fairly short amount of time. So it's not that I can't get, especially when I wake up in the morning, it's a little bit easier, or if someone makes me really angry, or if I'm really annoyed, then it's easier to get there. But just especially in the afternoon, sometimes my voice does slip from here, but it's really hard to get back to the voice I had. And in fact, I found an old recording that I had. It was actually pretty surprising to hear how low it was to start with.
Yeah, and mention about that, like I mentioned, because I lived in Japan for a while, and in Japan, women have a very high-pitched voice, and especially the more polite you have to be, the more submissive you have to be. And I lived in like the deep south, rural part of Japan, and so like just talking with my girlfriends, or when you get in an elevator, there's an elevator girl that they bow deep into, and their voice is like at the highest pitch, like dogs can probably hear them. And just after years of emulating that, and the story of Declan went back to where I live, and we had to go to the police station, it's a long story, but I had to talk with the police officer, and we accidentally hit my car, and they were trying to convince me to say it was my fault, so that all of the insurance would pay for her hospitalization. And I was like going, you want me to admit it's my fault, but that's not true. And the difficult thing is, my Japanese is so fluent, but I'm still American. So my instinct is to be defensive and not submissive. But it's very unusual. But anyways, culturally it was all wrong. But Jeff's sitting next to me, he's like, it's like looking at an alien. Because my voice is entirely different than what he's used to. And so it was like,
not so much the words, obviously, because I couldn't understand them, but it was like this pitch changed so drastically that I would not have recognized her voice.
and had I been speaking in another room, you couldn't have identified me, I don't think. And I have to routinely get recorded for work, which I hate, but like, the first time I did it, they played it back, I'm like, oh my god, I sound like my mom. So I consciously changed that. And by having a slightly higher pitch, I don't sound like my mom. So now, when I speak in presentations, I do typically, but the flip side of that is you start to sound overly defensive, overly submissive, if you will. And I think women have a tendency to apologize too much anyways, and so it almost takes away from the credibility. So the more I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, the more I say that, and the higher pitch, the more it takes away from credibility. And that's
And Carolyn, you bring up an interesting point, because a lot of women tend to use a pattern called upspeak, where we end our statements going up, even though we know what we're talking about, but it sounds like we're not sure. And so this is something that many women use. So it's important to know that, but at the same time, there's some conflict in telling someone you should try doing this, because a lot of women do it. Because there are plenty of women who say we need to stop doing this, but these are the type of things that you should really become aware of, to say, okay, well, I could maybe use it in this setting, but I don't want to use it here. Or how do I fit this in? Do I want to fit this in? No, I want to break that mold. I don't think I want to help continue it. So making kind of choices about the way we use our style and our language is a big part of the treatment too. Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a point to bring up too, which may or may not make sense to any of this, but so when I was a kid, and this is not just to do with voice, it has to do with mannerisms in general, I knew that I was not like normal, right? And so by the time I was in 3rd or 4th grade, I started adjusting my mannerisms, right? So I would like have what I thought were male characteristics about myself as second nature, and then by the time I was 20, 25 years old, I thought I had sort of mastered that. And so that no longer, I didn't think anyway that my mannerisms were almost natural and not consciously made. You know, like the way that I walk, the way that I talk, the way that I, you know, did anything that had to do with communication, really, with other people, to me seemed like it was something that I had sort of like mastered into my consciousness or whatever. And there were still plenty of people when I was 20-something that didn't really buy it, but I bought it, and I think that I did a pretty good job of coming across as male. So now I'm 30, well, anyway, I'm older now, and I walk down the street or whatever, and I think I broke that consciousness. Like, I would just walk like I would have always walked. I try really, really hard to not be anything that I wasn't naturally from birth or whatever. If that makes any sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, like, dressing myself, putting on makeup, walking, like, all of those things are very, very natural. I think to be, like, more feminine for me or whatever. So someone sees me walk down the street, they're not like, that's a tranny. Like, they just think I'm just some chick, right? But the one thing that I still struggle with, and it's not something that I've ever really spent a lot of time thinking about, is my voice. Because I've tried to break any sort of, like, masculinity that I put into my voice as I was younger, just like I did with all of the other habits that I've broken over the last half dozen years. But with my voice, I feel like it still is fairly masculine, even though I don't try to make it masculine or feminine. I just try to talk like me. You know what I mean? Without any sort of consciousness about it. But then I noticed that, like, if I'm around, like, small children, they're like, is that a boy or a girl? She talks like a boy or whatever. Like, they still see me as feminine for the most part, but they do get caught up on the voice, and I admit that bugs me a little bit. Adults just freeze over it. They either don't notice or they don't really care, whatever. You know, I don't ever get misgendered, except for, like, kids in a situation where they hear me talking. If I'm not talking, they don't say, those questions. But when I talk, sometimes they do. And so I'm just wondering, like, all that, what your advice would be in a situation like that where I really, really try hard to be my conscious self and not try to change anything to be someone different than I am, but at the same time, like, I do want to come across as female even after I speak.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a lot? That's a lot. I'm sorry.
No, I think, so there are two things that makes me think of. One, I'll say your comments about how, from childhood, you made kind of some choices, cognitive choices to make changes to either highlight masculinity or, whatever you wanted to change. And this therapy can be a little bit emotional for people because a lot of times it's a trigger because growing up they were trying to hide a lot. And so sometimes, well, more than sometimes, often my patients will say, like, wow, this is like, I'm finally able to let out the things that I've been trying to cover up for so long. And so it can be very emotional in that sense. So that's one part of my answer to what you said. And then the second is a person who, if you feel happy with yourself and it's really only intermittently, like when you're talking to kids that it bothers you, I don't know that warrants coming in for treatment. Really, I think the ideal person is someone who's very bothered by it, really motivated to work and make changes. So if it's only happening very rarely and it doesn't really impact your day-to-day life, it might not be as big of a priority. So I guess if you find, like, I really want to nip this in the bud and just not have it happen, then it might be warranted to do some treatment. But overall, if you feel pretty confident with the way you sound and you like it, then I don't see a reason to make changes.
Oh, really?
I think if you did, like, Jeff's mom, she has this totally different voice she uses when she talks to her because it's worth annoying. And she sounds like Elmo or something. If you just, like, use, I don't want to say, like, baby talk, but if you just use a more childish voice, I don't know, it's a thought. Maybe it's pain in the butt, but it's a thought.
And that,
Yeah, right. Well, and it's weird because, like, now, like, on the telephone even, I get it less than I do with children, which is weird. But a lot of times I'll start off with, like, this is Brianna, and then people will just automatically go to female pronouns because with that they've been told that I'm female or whatever. And once again, I don't hear people pause or skip over the words. They're just like, oh, okay, this is a chick. But it does. It happens. It does work. So, like I say, it does. It only bothers me because I don't like being misgendered. You know, not because I don't necessarily like my voice or anything. But that, you know, yeah, I guess I do want to be gendered correctly.
Yeah, and you could certainly come into treatment and say that's my one goal is to not be misgendered with children, and that would be totally appropriate as long as you kind of have like a clear target. Or many people will come in and say I don't want to be misgendered on the phone, and so we'll work on phone work, so calling and talking on the phone a lot to work on that specific goal.
The other thing I was going to comment on is basically what you were touching on is when I was a kid I used to sing soprano and I liked it, and of course that's not a guy thing to do, and so and I used to talk really feminine, so of course back then the treatment for transgender people my mom and dad didn't know was basically whip them into shape. No, make them a man. You used to hear that. Make them a man. You know, and so one of the other things is I was taught to
Really deep.
you know,
Some people all.
well, I mean,
I can talk about this all day. It's all nice.
yeah, when I first came into you asked if I have a radio voice, you know, if I work professionally for a radio, you know. It'd be a different because people could see me, you know, especially today online, you know, and they'd have this look and then talk. You know.
I remember
So
that.
this comes really natural for me. So I can really talk all day just like this.
But it's not who I want to represent who I am. So to get to where I want, it's a huge range. So I've like cut it in half, but I still got a long way to go. You know, so the difficult part is I have such a far place to go that it seems like that mountain is just, you know, you get over one little peak and it's like, really? Another one?
The progress is impressive because when you speak lower, you can hear the resonance. You can hear that's your body is resonating, and when you speak the way you're speaking here, I just want to say it's a huge change.
Right.
So
And
you
that
should,
came- and that
you
came
should
from- and that was-
feel proud of that versus disappointed because that is huge.
And that came from Allison. I mean, you have a recording of me when I first started, you know, and
But you did all the work, so I think of myself as kind of like a cheerleader, a guider. But you do all the work.
you do most of the work, but with the coach, you know, it's sort of like playing football. You need a coach to teach you how to do it right, so you can score that touchdown. All the work went to the coaches that helped you along the way, you know. So
Oh, that's nice, but I don't.
I just got done watching Army Navies.
Oh.
Who won, by the way?
I don't know. The Navy went ahead of the
Marines, right?
I remember the Navy guy, so it's very important to him. I don't care about
Anyway,
Liz, do you have anything about your experience with her that you want to share? Certain things that work for you.
So things that I'm trying to think of, I know specifically some things that I had that were kind of, well, before going there, I was trying to do this on my own, and I was finding that I was coming across essentially things that were blocking me. I couldn't get past these plateaus that I've hit, and because there are instructions you can find online that say some of the things that you can do to try to feminize your voice, but what they don't tell you is if you're doing something wrong. And there were things that I was doing wrong. So that was one of the things that was very helpful in having this, is that you were able to very quickly see some of the things I was doing incorrectly and the things that were blocking it, and also just things that I wouldn't be able to get past, and also putting additional strain on my voice. So that was I think probably the most helpful part about going to her. Another thing that was kind of an internal blocker was that as your voice starts to change, and because you do have to listen to it in order to find out, are you getting the change that you want? Mm-hmm. Are you how close are you watching it? It helps to get that feedback. But at the same time, because it's not just a matter of because when you hear a recording of your own voice, it sounds different than you hear it because of the different ways the sounds travel. But this is more than that, which is that you hear a voice that doesn't sound like the one that you're really used to, and it doesn't sound natural. It sounds really fake. And then you start feeling self-conscious about it because of that. But then and I've run across other people who say the same thing. But when I listen to the way that they talk, it doesn't sound absolutely completely natural yet, but it sounds much more congruent with what they're trying to look like. And you hear them using their natural voice and then using the one that they've been practicing on. The one they've been practicing on always sounds better, at least to the other person, the person listening. And you think like, well, of course you'd want to use that one. And but if being on the side of the person doing it, you think like, this sounds weird to me because it doesn't sound like a normal natural voice. So just realizing that just because it doesn't sound natural to you doesn't mean that it isn't something that's working. And that over time then it does start to sound much more natural. So speaking like this at first sounded essentially fake, but it doesn't sound fake now. So that was something that really did take some to get over.
I have these what the hell moments in grocery stores where I say something like, can I help you guys? And then like, that. But nobody's saying it back, so maybe I should be less self-conscious about my own opinion.
The other thing is when you go into this, I think that, a tool is really helpful. You need something that can record your own voice. I had the biggest problem with that. My phone was terrible at it. And then I went and borrowed my wife's notepad. And the problem with that is, of course, the speaker wasn't working right, so it couldn't really record me. So every time I tried to go, when I was in your office, I could see where I was at, but when I went home to practice, I couldn't. So you really need to also, to get the proper tools, I should have just went out and bought one, because the money I was putting in, the time I was putting in, I couldn't take that home with me. I don't know why the two devices doesn't really work, but one, the microphone didn't pick up a lot of the sounds, or it would kick off all the background noise and miss mine a lot. So I was getting false readings. When we were in your office with yours, then I could follow along. It seemed like we were narrowing it down a lot more. So the tools also is some kind of a voice that you can record, either your phone or a laptop or a notepad or something that will pick up your voice and be able to play it back. And you have a few of the things that you can get when you go see her that she will help you with.
There's one that's, so these are not, expensive tools. They're available through the App Store. One is called Voice Analyst. That's I think it's about $14 for the iPad, and there's a light version that's about $5. But that's a nice one that, it's not super fancy, but it gets the job done for measuring pitch of the voice. Mm-hmm. And then Voice Analyst.
Who makes that?
I actually couldn't tell you that off the top of my head. But there are a few, like there's one. I know, I didn't, I'm sorry. Voice Analyst, yeah. But that's one that is one that I often recommend because it's not too expensive and it's portable and you can use it just about anywhere and save recordings and kind of compare, how did I sound a month ago, 2 months ago.
How much is it about?
I think it was $14 for the iPad. And there's a light version that's only $5, but it doesn't let you save your recordings. So
yeah, it's better that you save your recordings, then you can go back and listen to where you were.
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you the one that, as soon as my phone comes up. I turn it off before our meetings, just so it doesn't keep fuzziness. Also.
Okay.
So it's actually an app, it's not a device that
Nope, it's just an app. Yep.
Does it look like a microphone? Are there any apps that like on other phones? I did some research on some of that, but I found out Apple products are about the only ones that seem to have like true to life recording and playback. Everything else is way off.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of bad ones that are like free ones, like voice, pitch tools, and some will just kind of show you like a meter as you talk, but it doesn't really record it very easily or give you a good average. So, I use this tool, but there are probably other ones out there that would work well. The key is that you can use something that's consistent. So as long as you're getting the same readings and it's similar so that you know how to mark your progress or kind of find your goal area, then that's really the important thing. And even if you don't get an app, but you just use like your audio or memo recording and use that to listen. And so listen, see if you like it. If you like it, try to do it again. If you hate it, what do you hate about it? How do you make changes? So that's really how you can do it. So you really don't even need an app if you're willing to just kind of listen and re-listen and re-listen.
Which can be kind of torture.
It can be, yes, it really can. And, that feeling of not liking to listen to our voice is really a hard thing to get over. And, Liz, I'm glad you brought up that feeling that the voice is fake or not natural. That's very, very common. I often hear that. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if anyone changed their voice and started talking that way, you would listen and say, that's not me, because it's not you. It's not the voice you've been using. But in time, with lots of practice, it starts to feel more authentic and more natural.
And something I did too is that I did enough of that to try to be able to listen to myself and look for the other clues that were telling me I was doing something wrong. And that way, because the reason I did that is because you can only have that running so often. You can't do normal speech, and that it was good to be able to sense when you're doing it yourself, so that you can correct it in the middle of the day rather than just when you're doing practice sessions. That way, and then you don't have to hear yourself.
And that's a great point too, right? You can't. It's a tool to use during training, but it shouldn't be a permanent tool, because you should get to a point, hopefully, where you know what it just physically feels like. And so.
Yes, that's
Anything else specific exercise-wise that
Um,
you recommend for anyone?
Generally, I'm a little bit hesitant to do exercises with people unless I've had a chance to assess their voice, because you can do damage. But if you are thinking about, changing your pitch and trying to move it up, kind of just really basic like singing exercises to move your pitch up. So humming upward, doing kind of like, notes going up to start stretching your voice in that range is one of the things that I work on with my patients.
I also wanted to mention that you go to therapy for both.
Yes.
So it's not
That's
necessarily.
my next question.
It's not necessarily, for people who want to go up. It's also for trans males who want to bring their voice back down, who naturally talk like this. So it would help them to be able to go the other way, be able to talk with a deeper voice.
That is my next question. You can do that. You can also train for pitch down.
Well, with transition from female to male, generally hormones take care of most of that work. So that's kind of, it's a little
very
bit,
noticeable if you go
yeah.
to trans males, and you're like, what?
yeah.
Yeah,
What do you mean you didn't have to do anything?
our
Yeah.
son has
Where
a
did that
lower,
fear
lower
come
voice
from?
than me, and so he's always telling me that, Dad, you sound like a girl. I don't. And so it is really lucky. It was like really fast
Yeah.
too. So it's
So-
no fair.
So there's,
Yeah, the mannerisms are still there, but this is cool. That isn't
and so that's an area where I actually will see people. So maybe their voice is lowered, but they're having trouble with the mannerisms,
Okay,
or the
that's a
language
good
choice,
idea.
or the way. Even if you have a lower pitch, if you articulate your words in a more feminine way, it can kind of be incongruent for the listener. So there
That's
is
a good
room
idea.
to educate on those other things.
Mhm.
Yeah. And not everyone gets that low pitch with the hormones. So some people only they hit like a plateau, and then they want to do some exercises to get even lower.
I just want to make sure that everybody knew that this could work for a lot of people.
Yeah, thank
and,
you.
And non-trans people who just want to.
not so much on the list.
Maybe we need to go the other way.
Yes.
It's just acting like her. You got to work on that.
And some of the things that you teach are also just they're basics that are used in general speech and voice therapy. So there's crossover between this and the pathology part of it, and voice training for people who are in actors and singers.
Yep. Yep, there's really no special regimen. It's just borrowing from normal voice treatment for anyone who might have voice issues.
And those people, because they're having to both project and then also sometimes go to extremes in their range,
Absolutely.
which is a little bit of what we're doing too.
Mhm.
That's useful across the board, right?
Absolutely.
What about like some of the stretching exercises and such that you would recommend for people? Is that something that you would recommend to people for as when they're practicing, even if you haven't been able to evaluate that?
Yeah, so your voice is a muscle, right? And so it's attached to all the other muscles in your neck. And a lot of us can get voice issues because we have too much tension in our necks. And so learning how to stretch the voice out physically by, massaging the larynx or massaging around your larynx, stretching, especially for those of us who work at computers a lot and are kind of typing and holding a lot of tension in the neck. So it is important to learn some stretches. Not everyone needs them, but it's good practice to stretch out your neck and do some stretches before you do voice practice. Mm-hmm. And for all my patients, I say you have to do vocal exercises every single day. So warming up that voice the way a singer or an actor might. So doing humming and gliding up with hums, gentle hums. Learning how to breathe the right way so that you're not just squeezing your voice out of your neck and not using your diaphragm to breathe. Mm-hmm. So
when you breathe more, and when you talk, of course, then it comes from here where males come more from the chest area.
Not necessarily, but that can help with voicing. Yeah, most of us tend to breathe kind of in a shallow way. So learning how to send the air a little bit lower and use a fuller breath to support the resonance in the voice can be a nice way to help.
You start here and push up and do 6 seconds.
Yeah, yoga is a good training tool for breathing that way. Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was seeing you,
Actually hard to do start here and push up, but it is like.
Yeah, I think that tired me out more than anything else. It's like, really?
one of the things I was doing wrong when I started there is that because I was trying to bring it up, but I wasn't doing it in a very good way, and so I was getting a lot of tension trying to do more with my voice than I was supposed to in that way. I guess that's the best way I can describe it. Mm-hmm. And you could actually even see it looked like when I was talking, that's really what it looked like. Mm-hmm. And so that was so the stretching did help with that, and it's also something I just kind of feel for. It's not quite that dramatic when it happens to me, but sometimes I'll get where it's almost like as you bring it up that I would kind of get stuck here, whereas if I'm doing it well, I can go like this, and sometimes I'll feel myself kind of get stuck in there, and so feeling for that tension there is one of the things that I do, and one of the ways to get out of it is to stop, and then even just doing that simple resonance humming, mm-hmm. Whereas at first it seemed I couldn't see where that was making a difference, just like trying to hum in such a way that you can feel the resonance, like, and then once I do that, then all of a sudden it's almost like I've broken through that again. So things like that are helpful.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Good.
So if someone decided they did want to see you,
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody who deals with voice therapy and whatnot, how would they go about paying for that?
So thank you for asking. That's a good next question. I'm not the only speech therapist in the cities who provides transgender voice therapy. There's someone at the VA, so if anyone is a veteran, you would be able to get services there. There's a woman who has a private clinic in South Minneapolis named Anita Kozin, who's been doing it for many, many years, much longer than I have. So she's an expert and has even written or contributed to some texts on transgender voice treatment. And so if you choose to come to a clinic, I always ask a patient to try to first see if their insurance covers it, and if it's not going to be covered by insurance, then I'll often say you might be better served going to a private clinic, because it's much more expensive to go into a medical clinic than someone's like home practice, like what Anita Kozin has. And if you're a veteran, you absolutely should go to the VA, and because then it would be covered. But what generally happens if you do contact your insurer and you're able to get it covered, then you would ask your physician. So it could be your primary care provider, or someone you're seeing maybe at like the Center for Sexual Health, or some provider that you have and let them know I want to do voice treatment or I've got concerns about my voice. I want to work on it, and then they would send an order to my clinic, and then we contact the patient to schedule an evaluation and treatment. So it's really up to the patient to be proactive and contact their insurer first to see if it's covered, and then if it's not, then there are other options like seeing someone in a private setting. And you could certainly come to my clinic and pay out of pocket, but it's quite expensive. So I'm always trying to think about what's the best use of your resources. And if you were paying out of pocket too, we could try to make an accommodation so that you don't have as many sessions. So you get, maybe you're given more assignments to do on your own. But it can be really helpful to come on a consistent basis to get the best information and training. So it is unfortunate that not all insurance covers it, but many of my patients do have it covered. So it's just a matter of asking your insurer if you have health insurance.
Yeah, I asked Dr. Feldman about it. Feldman wrote up that I should have it. And of course, I put it in order to you, and then since it was a referral, because normally they don't cover voice, but they'll cover speech. And since it's a referral for a type of a speech, it goes back into the speech and then it's covered. So Blue Cross did cover mine. And I believe yours was covered too, wasn't it, Liz?
It was.
So that's how I did mine. And it wasn't that hard to do. I just asked Feldman if she thought that would be good, because I was actually thinking of surgery. And surgery is really not that good. The results are 60-40, so it's really not viable. And of course, in my opinion, I'm struggling with the fact that if I have surgery, I have to be quiet for about 2 months. My kids don't think I can keep quiet for let alone 2 months. So yeah, that's one of the ways that I have mine covered through insurance.
Do you know much about what you know or have heard about surgery and what it actually accomplished there?
So generally, speech therapists are kind of in the camp where we say try to do as much as you can without surgery. The surgery is risky. It can be kind of dangerous, and when it goes wrong, it can permanently damage your voice. So my take is first try doing it on your own and see what you can just do on your own, because you might really be amazed. And then if you, after you've really given it a try, are interested, you could look into it. But I generally think of it as kind of risky and maybe not worth the risk.
Your risk in surgeries, I kind of done some research on it, and that's why I went through the therapy, and I'm still thinking of more therapy, is because the things that could go wrong, besides infection and all the obvious things, because it is a surgery, you could have a deeper voice. You could have it where it doesn't change at all, and you can have no voice at all. It could be a damage where you might need to have one or something, so you can talk like that. So the risk is there, and the success rate is not where it should be to be noted in the medical community. They don't really approve the methods because there's a few different methods that they use depending on where you go. Most of the doctors who are in the trans community don't recommend it. Even Dr. Marcy Bowers didn't recommend it, but the only one she recommends, and she gave me the name. So again, here's a doctor who really goes out of her way to help people. She doesn't recommend it. So if you can do more with therapy, you're probably way better off. That's the research I come up with.
Thank you. So let's say you're listening in today and you live in Minnesota. What would be the best way to search for someone like yourself, in your opinion, Google search or otherwise? What would be the best way to get this
I would say going through like a transgender health provider, because usually they're connected with someone in the community. So even though it might not be easy to find on just a generic search, I'd say talking to like your health provider who treats your transgender issues and asking them, who do you know who does voice therapy? And then looking that way. But a lot of people do, especially private clinics, will advertise it like on their home website. So like Anita Kozin has it written on her website and describes it there. So if you search, transgender voice therapy Minneapolis, you would likely hit on her website through like a Google search. We're lucky in the cities that we have a few providers. I think there's also one at Park Nicollet, but I'm
Yes, there is.
there is.
There's two.
Oh,
Or you're just talking about speech pathologist or.
transgender people who do transgender voice.
Oh yeah. That's right.
I got a question for you too. Would it be possible for us to post this information on our website?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I have a few extra copies that I'm very happy to leave here.
So that leads into, what I was going to say next to the group and anyone who might still be online, is that, a lot of the reasons that we have people like yourself come and join us is that we want to have the best resources for people so that when they come to these groups, and we do plan on being plural at some point in the near future, 2017, that they can drop in and they can get information that is trustworthy from people who are just like them in their area going through the same thing. So this is part of a bigger picture is us having people like you here so that people can drop in to meetings like this versus having to go through Google searches and things like that to come up with a bunch of information that may or may not be all that useful to them or truthful to them. But us in the group where we all have a common goal, and so we're going to be probably a little more honest with each other than Google will be with us. So for anybody who is still online, that is the mission that we have here is compiling references and things like that so we can put your information on our website and say, this person is good. They've been to our group, physical people who have seen them, so on and so forth. So it also helps you guys who are a part of our community in a way of giving us things that helps us along our journey. So I'm very, very appreciated that you could stop in today and share some of that stuff with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure.
Is there anybody left online, Liz?
Oh yeah, looks like Tegan's still on.
Is there a way for them to ask any questions? I do have questions from one other person.
Yeah, if you do.
Messenger. They're not on the topic, so I just wanted to wait for the end for them.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Tegan? Guess not.
Okay. So here, let me ask this person if they're still online. We have.
I got one.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Has anybody heard yet if Fairview and Blue Cross have settled on their contract?
That is a good question. I don't have an answer for that, but did you get a lot of people got letters that were kind of
I
scary.
just heard about it.
Yeah.
I got a letter.
Yeah, that letter was very scary for a lot of people. But I don't have an answer to that. I'm sorry.
So what was specifically the thing?
Their contract was up with each other, and they're basically saying that Blue Cross ain't going to cover it, and they're kind of in that tug of war right now on trying to find a contract. Last time that happened, it was with another carrier, and it was just about the time I was going to go have a mammogram up in CDC up in St. Cloud, and it's like, really? So,
You said that happened with United Healthcare and for the neighboring analytics. So I'm like, it's like, really? You guys are really connected to it, so to send it in the Congress and I'm able to.
I'm sure they'll work it out. It's just a matter of time, where they'll come to a term and then they'll be back to friends again.
I hope so. But yeah, I don't have an answer. I'm sorry.
Anybody else?
I personally think they should have it so, like, the contract has to go a full year before. That's the part I heard is they're saying, starting the first year. Maybe it's got to be across those Fairview. Might not have insurance. Well, that's what I was, that's why I said, I think it should be for like 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll just. We got such a big powerful movement right now.
That's right outside.
someone online, and this doesn't have to do with today's topic, but they were wondering about Medicaid and low-income housing, and if there's any help with anything like that in Minnesota. Does anyone have any information on what Medicaid does here for folks? For someone who's on SSI?
There's someone who does know that. His name is Alan Ostergaard, and he works for the YMCA, which I know sounds very supposed to push for me. And he had all the contacts for all, like anybody who's experiencing homelessness or in danger of homelessness. He has resources throughout the entire state. So no matter where you live, he can help you find housing or whatever your situation is.
So they're out of state now.
Uh,
And they don't have houses.
Well, if they're coming to Minnesota, or if they're homeless in Minnesota,
Yeah.
then he has to be that person.
So give them that name.
Yeah, actually, I think I have his email.
I had his card, but
I think it's in my phone. To be honest with you, just email them.
See how we help all our trust.
That's great. Yeah.
So if we can reach more people to help themselves and also help you, that would be fantastic.
And there are a lot of people in other areas of the country who they don't have it very well, and they don't have the same amount of resources, but they don't have any guaranteed anything to get here. So it is a situation that is probably going to continue for a while. So we want to be able to help people.
Yep.
So thank you for looking that up.
No
I'll
problem.
let her know. So sorry that was not happening.
That's not a problem. No, Okay, please, if there are other things you discussed at the end of the meeting.
If we have time at the end, let them be told. But if we do, yeah, we definitely just kind of open it up and whatnot. So I do have good news. Speaking of things that are off topic, I just, for some of you who are already here, I did get my insurance letter last week from Medica, who Target uses, and they have agreed to cover my surgery for SRS. Our GRS was only consider it. However, with Marcy Bowers, it's 3 years right now, so it'll be 3 years longer that I can't wear suit underwear. But I'm still really, really excited that everything finally has gone through. It did take a fair amount of badgering to her office in Colorado that deals with all of the insurance billing. So if any of you are getting started with the process, do make sure you follow up regularly with the business offices of whoever you decide to go to make sure that they have not forgotten about you. But I really, really loved Marcy Bowers when I met her, and I wanted to stick with it and see if things got accomplished, and they finally did. So I probably will have a date before the end of the month. And hopefully a bunch of people will quit, and then they'll just call me and be like, hey, what are you doing next week? So,
And I've got Jeff's some focus issues.
Yeah, one of the bad things, of course, with the election and the political thing a year ago or so, and not even a year ago, that in North Carolina and stuff, a lot of people got really nervous, and a lot of people signed up and stuff. We gotta go get it now. So that's causing, of course, longer waiting lists for everyone. So
And with more insurance covering it.
yes,
Because there are a lot more plans that cover it now than there used to be, so there's a lot more people who are going for it. Of course, that can change much more quickly than surgeons can be trained into it. So right now, it really is a seller's market, which is why the offices they're not particularly responsive, because they have so many people contacting them, and also they don't really have to get back to people because they're still going to go there.
You went private, you said you'll either fight with insurance for X number of months, or you can pay this and this is what's going to cost. And it was so much faster.
Yeah.
It was $11,000 out of pocket, but it was faster.
but if you could do pay it right out of pocket, and then go back after the insurance, but now you got the long wait for the insurance, and then of course they don't like to cover it as well, but
Well, once you paid it, they'd rather screw you over.
because they know that there's no way to go, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, we tried. I mean, we fought it and fought it and fought it. And here's the saddest part. So this is from all the mail. Initially, it just went through golden. We were like, wow, that was too easy. And then the office let us know. They're like, yeah, it's coded the same as someone with breast cancer. And so when they match up the current patient gender with like as soon as they figure that out and that it's not breast cancer, you're basically screwed. They'll come back after you and you'll pay it all. And it will be much, much more expensive. And so then we called up and we clarified and we're like, okay, it's coded the same, but we want it for this reason. And then they're like, oh no. And then they were like, and then it was like somehow on record and every time we called and asked about it. Because it was in the explanation of benefits as being covered. But every time we called and asked, they're like, oh no, it's not covered, it's not covered, it's not covered. That was on unit when it was done. It's fine.
Did you ever get it covered?
Mhm.
Did you go through the appeals process and all that?
Oh, yeah.
And then did you try that, whatever steps after the appeals process?
Yeah, we had an advocate from within, and I went through my company HR and all the way up through my
We found out that they had a specific rider on employers' insurance that they strictly forbade it.
They
So
could
that
opt in or opt out, and they opted out because it depends whether your company is large enough that they do some self-funded.
Mhm.
So here's the really ironic thing. So I worked for a really, really, really big company called Oracle, and I left it to go take a similar job at a smaller company because I liked the environment better. And I was like, oh wow, this is much more like people are just like similar, collaborative, blah blah blah. But we knew it was going to kind of impact our health insurance, right? Like a little bit, but we didn't realize how much because they weren't self-funded. So we had like this golden, awesome insurance here, and then I went to kind of lesser insurance here that I thought was going to be better. Well, Oracle just bought us back. And so if we had just waited like 6 months, it would have been covered.
Did you try to call Builder?
No.
the company actually said they're going to change it first the year before the purchase.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I guess the question is, do we get it back?
Because mine has the anti-trans clause in it.
Oh yeah.
And I went to see him, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Oh, I've seen this before." And he opens it right up to the page and he goes, "This is in clear violation of the 1964 Chapter 7." And he knew exactly. He wrote it down, and I brought it to HR, and they looked at it and they went, "We got to change this."
But they did. They agreed to change it, but they weren't going to change it until January 1st.
They're like, no one has ever asked us that before, so we'll change it as of January 1st.
But on the other hand, you might be in line for reimbursement. Ask Phil Duran. He's in Outfront, Minnesota. And I'm actually trying to get Phil Duran here. I've talked to Phil Duran a couple of times on that. So we could,
that would be awesome.
so we could actually have a meeting where people could ask any questions.
Is it a TMN? It's a TMN, isn't it?
No, it just ends with an N. DURN.
You got a free day.
Yep.
If you can get off of work, they have a thing. Where's our Facebook? We got it
The
on
gala was just
on December. Hold on a second. Yes, it's the third Friday, so it's coming up yet. It's in our photos. What are you looking for? The Phil Duran thing at the University of Minnesota. It's in room 150. I went there to talk to him already about some stuff, and that's where I was talking to him about. Here it is, right here.
It's like a legal clinic. Is that what it is?
Yeah, at the University of Minnesota.
Christine, you have the picture?
I don't know why it's in.
It's on the Facebook.
Yep, it's on the Facebook.
Oh,
It's right here. It's on our Facebook. So if you go to our Facebook, and of course we always wear buddies. It's this right here and down and below. It gives the dates.
Oh, there it goes.
No?
Oh. Okay, I'll just go to the
But-
Facebook page.
Yeah, go to our Facebook page. Phil Duran will be there. And if you look at that, it's coming up.
Oh, December 16th? that
Yeah.
one?
Yep, December 16th. So you can go down there and talk to him.
That's what time it is. Leave it before.
Oh, yeah.
For the special price, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Phil Duran.
yeah.
Phil, well, you know what I would do then?
Yeah.
Get Phil Duran because it's on there.
Yeah.
how you spell his name and stuff in Alfront, Minnesota, and I'm sure you can find his website. And he's really short with his answers. When I first was transitioning, I asked him, I had 3 questions I answered, and he answered them for free. And it was, when I change, since I'm still married to my wife, am I still married to my wife after I legally change my name? Yes. Do I have to fill out a new application or change it on the marriage license? No. And I can't remember what the other one was, but he answered it in that.
Like that?
One
Yes,
word
no.
answers.
Yeah, one word answers, yes, no. But then when I
Then you saving his voice.
and yeah, I did. And then, but when I did go to talk to him about health insurance, yeah, he said it's a direct violation of the 1964 Act, and what that did is give women the freedom to be who you are, because at the very end, it was ironically opposed by the Democrats at the time. They didn't want to put sex in there. So, because sex is pretty open, but they were giving the freedom basically to blacks and so you can't discriminate against race, creed, so and at the very end, the sex was added later to have the bill passed because they didn't want some black guy having more rights than his wife. So they actually put it in, and now it's coming forth because that also includes transgenders. It also includes, and that's what the Supreme Court just used in a recent ruling on gays and lesbians being able to be married. That's the ruling they used.
Ooh.
So, anyway, he knows all about that. I would contact him and see what if anything could be done.
That would be so nice.
Even a partial of it would be great.
Yeah.
So,
Actually, I would pay for a semester of college for
so contact over on Alfront, Minnesota, and see where it goes.
So thank you. That's fabulous.
And I know the difference between working for a company that's privately insured, because my company is privately insured, and I was fighting with Blue Cross forever to get something covered. Even something I said, even when I went through the summer benefits documents and found what it was and there weren't exclusions, I go back to him and say, he says here that we're covered under this policy, and then this policy leads back here and there aren't any exclusions. I say, nope, we don't cover that. I mean, that was just their simple answer.
Yeah.
And we had, we also have one of our benefits is that they have the people from a company who do that, what you had, where they try to go back for you and go with the insurance company, and they said they ran into the same thing, and they just gave up. Like, nope, we can't do it. And eventually just went to our benefits director, because she'd been one of the ones who put together that plan, and said, here's what this looks like, here's the reasons we would have put that in, because these are the things we're trying to go after, and here's some of the charges I have, and after about 5 minutes of looking, she said, yeah, you're right, I'll call them and have them cover it. And then they did. No, it still took, actually, from that point on, because I had a backlog of charges, and it took 6 months for them to pay them all eventually. Whoa. But they get them. And in this case, I mean, the thing that was bad about this is that we're privately insured. So all Blue Cross is doing is just opening the bills and paying them based off of the policies that we set up with them. Because we determine what gets covered and what doesn't, and then they just go through the details of doing the processing. So there's no money out of their wallet when they do that. If they approve something, they're just writing out of Lana Lakes' checkbook. So even in those cases, so I thought the only reason I was able to do that was because I talked to the benefits director and because we're self-insured. That if we weren't, I got nowhere in getting through the roadblocks before that.
My question also is, Phil Duran would like to talk to you sometime about how you got your electrology done.
Oh, okay.
Because he's failed at a lot of his attempts, so he wants to know how you were able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Deus Ex Machina.
He doesn't, but he wants to know for the patients like me to help fight for it. Because he also goes to court. You know, he goes to
it. Look, it's gonna bikini right now as he wants to.
Maybe, we don't know. Maybe he wants bikini.
Moving on.
Yeah, that kind of led into
We'll do the no comment thing, but whatever.
I'll contact him about that.
Doesn't Ron have anything else?
Well, thanks for coming.
I know I might sneak out. I'm a little nervous about the road, so I'm gonna drive back to St. Paul.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Thank you again for having me. It was very nice. I'll leave my cards and then some
Okay.
paperwork.
Well,
there.
good.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Sorry,
Hmm?
that was just an aside. I like Allison's outfit and I like your outfit.
Thanks. You can borrow it if you want.
It's bad, I'm just saying, I'm just saying. You liked it too? You like your outfit too? Yes, I was commenting in a nice way.
If you want to borrow it.
Yeah, some people think that you're small.
I don't think so.
So we didn't hear back from the gal, but I sent her the information, so that is taken care of. And
And we just got like a $500,000 grant or something for them, so, yeah.
I think what we could do with that.
Seriously, like little housing and.
We go around with good advice.
We could rent the fireside room.
You could rent one fireside. So we've been looking at churches downtown, right, for another meeting, and so we went to, what was the name, Plymouth Congregational, to UCC churches like this. We love UCC because they love us. ONA certified, for those of you who know what that is, open and affirming. Different denominations of the Christian church use different phrases to that claim to fame or whatever, but ONA is the most common one that you hear. And it just stands for open and affirming. Basically, it just means that they are, LGBT friendly, and are inclusive to us. So we went to this church, it's right downtown Minneapolis, called Plymouth Congregational, and it was a very well-off church, a very inviting church, and we have this room called the Fireside Room that Liz and Todd got over.
So nice. It's so nice.
And it has like a remote for the window shades and what have you. It's super fancy. And even after
Nice place to sit brand new.
Oh yeah, it's exactly what it was for.
Yeah, that's brandy. Yeah. It just pops up a little bit. Anyways, so
There is not all of us drink.
that's not a problem. You just don't drink it then. So the deal is with that church is that they like money, and even though we're a support group and they waived a ton of fees, it was still a lot more than we pay here, which is zero. Now, granted, I send the church checks regularly, and will be this week, in fact, again, but so they do make some money off of us here, of course. But anyways, it would have been an out-of-pocket affair for me had we chosen the fireside room. You have to say it like that, apparently.
Why didn't you?
What?
Why didn't you?
Did I what?
You could have just brought them a check, right?
Yeah, so I'm not paying for anything, like this coming Friday.
Yeah.
So, I have to send $1,000 in down payment for my surgery date. So, but anyways, there's another church, since the subject has been brought up, there's another church on 28th and Lindale in South Minneapolis, that is much more affordable, as in we choose the amount we want to give. That is also UCC congregation that is going in, and they'd already known about it when I walked in the door, off the street, and told me who I was. So, so, which was kind of fun. That was kind of a neat compliment from a place that's 20-some miles away from here. So anyway, more to come on that. Right now, we're happy with where we're at, but obviously we do want to get to the larger part of the Metropolitan congregation. So we are, we're definitely wanting to branch out and do more. And if you want to add to that about what you're doing, Diana, please so far.
Currently, I'm working on expanding possibly the group up to St. Cloud. I've got a church that's interested in having us, and a hospice person who is up in Peaflight, not the same church, but I'm gonna meet with them and see how that will go, and maybe I could just have it where they're having Peaflight. So I don't know where we're also going with this group. you know, we're still on our young legs. We haven't even had our first, you know, official anniversary
Yeah,
yet.
we haven't.
We're already talking about
Toddlers.
spending at that. Yeah, we're crawling.
Baby trans.
But you know, there's a lot of different views on how we could do this. We operate like two separate groups. Well, for now, I'd be like comfortable operating like a one group, and we could just tie in through like the connections Liz could provide, and then after the beginning, we could break away and have our own discussions. You know, like having to be halfway through or so, or you know, if we have a guest speaker, and then just have our own discussions like we're doing now up in St. Paul. We're finding more and more people up in the St. Paul area are starting to come out now. So we're very, very nervous before, and then like a safe place for them, and we'll see where it goes. And we go nowhere, we might get some legs and run. That's where we're
What's the goal of
Yeah, 20th and Glendale is right in southern Minneapolis, so it'll be actually pretty easy to get to from St. Paul too, because it's right in Minneapolis and it's right in the bus line to Glendale, of course. So you can't get much more downtown than that.
That's what I was just thinking. I was like thinking of all the places that we could post flyers, like Not Clinic and Showbread and all the other cool places for this.
and then the other thing is
Do we have flyers? Anything new up there? I think they need you all. Okay. I can do flyers. For sure. We love flyers.
Well, and that's like how I found out about there was a study at U of M, and I totally just picked up the little thing at Showbread. And so like occasionally that kind of thing just happens there would be
Yeah, I've been going to U of M and I resupply sometimes, and then when I hear different people talk, and you know, I'm being so shy and stuff. That, yeah, I literally meet people and minimum flyers. You know, I knew somebody who was going to see me. Yeah. Well, you know, everyone has a different role. Liz is our tech person, and you're our leader, and I'm more like a salesperson or a social liaison.
I love that.
You know, and that's probably who I represent the group more with. Jamie comes up with the really cool flyers and the what do you call that, where you scan it?
Yeah,
QR code.
that's super
You know, so
cool.
the kids
Thank you
really,
for marketing.
and the kids will just, you know, so it takes a, you know, we have a good group, we have special things and we work with them.
You know what? I can be like your youth liaison because
Love that. Love that.
yeah, I can be your youth liaison because some of the most suburban optimists, their whole focus is anything like in front of you. But we made like, because I'm the treasurer of the youth, and because that's what we're doing, and our president is like super active in the Blaine GSA, we made like one of our number one things, LGBT be really good.
We need to get the kids up. We're having trouble getting the kids.
Yeah, we're trying not
And
to.
also baby steps, because, you know, that's hard for people to come out and step forward. I think
some of this stuff like that.
yes. And the election really truly, do you need to?
I didn't know
don't know what the
this
paper is, but sure.
Is it about the
Some
government
don't care.
or something else?
The Russian.
Oh yeah, the Russian interference. This is like BS and everybody else is like,
Later.
okay, fair enough. I
Don't
think
wanna
I
get
need
your hopes
some
up.
Don't wanna get my hopes up, so. Yeah, anyways, I'll do your youth liaison, because that's
Seriously,
how.
anything you can do for
Yeah.
the youth or our future, you know, we want them to be in the other hand. So nobody needs to pretend to be something for that anymore. Unless you're a serial killer, just pretend to be.
I love that.
That was like a funny pose.
Was that you that shared that?
That's awesome, I love that. Yeah, I love that.
So I've got a completely random thing. Some of you probably saw the post I had about it on Facebook. But so there, at Land O'Lakes, we have what are called ERGs, which is Enterprise Resource Groups. And so because what they are is just groups that are based off of characteristics that are funded by the company. Because they're funded by the company, then we have to help with help essentially pay back to the company. So we have different goals in mind. So the one that I'm part of is called Pride Alliance. So it's the LGBT one. So the LGBT group in Land O'Lakes, well, all the ones that we have, because there's one for Hispanic people, there's one for African American, and I think there's 7 or 8 of them now. And Pride Alliance is one of them. And so we have to come up with 1-year plans and 3-year plans to look at what we're going to do. And for the company's where the company wants help from us is that they want to have more retention of people who are in those groups. They want to be able to recruit more people within those areas. They want to get market insights into those groups. And there's the 4th one. There's a 4th one too that we're supposed to help with.
Would they sponsor us with some reimbursement?
They could.
Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we know, like,
Especially by the
too, but okay.
Well, if we have something that we're looking, if we ever have something that we have to pay for, I mean, if just ask for money and say like, what are you gonna do with it? I don't know. Yeah, if we do have something specifically we do need to buy, I can go to because they also have a philanthropic arm, and so we can go to them to get money.
Think of the camera and the microphone.
I'm thinking of bracelet.
The one,
Briefly.
the one thing
I did ask for that actually.
Also, on tonight's meeting, from one of the people who was listening was, I really wish I could see it there, people. So, I think that is like gonna be maybe a hope for us.
Well, the other thing is there's going to be a certain amount of people who aren't going to want to be seen, online or camera, because not everybody knows where we're at, not everybody knows where they're going, and attending the group to find out who they are, and so that would be a downfall on something like that. I mean, me personally, I don't care if I'm online. I don't think you would really care, Liz. We've been online enough, so I don't think it would be a big deal, but there's a few in the room that won't, and maybe before me, you would just have to ask. If you're uncomfortable with it, let us know.
Here's the document.
Yep.
Well, we could
Yep.
Somehow they would feel separate from
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we just have the camera such that we wouldn't have to have it be like back in the room.
Or
Oh, but
maybe put the camera right where Liz is at, and also want to sit off to the side.
But, yeah.
so this sorry to get back to the ERG thing. That we had to that each year we have to then go talk to the CEO and the board about what we're doing and what the plans are, because the CEO actually really is interested in those things that we do, which is a good sign. And so we had a 2-hour meeting which we did all the stuff, which is more than you probably expect. And so in our area we didn't because we each had to give a presentation of a part of what our missions are and what our plans are, and we didn't really have that much interesting to say along those lines. So I thought, I should probably talk about something more interesting than what I'm supposed to talk about. So I thought the way I'll do it is that because ours was going to be about community relations. That's right. That was the 4th one. So we're supposed to help with community relations, and so because one of the things that we're going to ask for is representation and pride, and we had actually asked for that for last year and got turned down. And the reason we got turned down is because Land O'Lakes is a farmer-owned co-op. So, and when the Ogerfeld ruling came through, we put out something on Facebook that was just a cupcake with rainbow-colored frosting on it and said "Love wins." And the CEO got to field lots of calls from some of the members who were not happy that we were using the brand to promote gayness, or I'm not really sure exactly what. I didn't get those things. So he's a little bit gun shy about doing something that public again. Although you can tell that he's actually come up with a pretty good defense for next time. So because of that, since we're going to ask for it again, and I know that he's not going to exactly want to jump into it because of the experience that they had last time, that I thought I would give a little more introductory material. So I spent, because I had 10 or 15 minutes that were allocated to me to talk about what we were going to do. So instead I said, because I only probably knew about half the people in the room, and so I just went through some of my story. I said, I'm Liz, I'm transgender, the first person who transitioned to Land O'Lakes, and talked about what it was like growing up, how that fed into the difficulty in transition, and then the things that helped. And one of the things that had helped a lot was seeing the promotion of Pride Month at Land O'Lakes. And so that was going to be a nice lead-in, so that way, when we asked for something like representation of Pride, that it had more meaning behind it. It wasn't just something that we were doing for kicks. It was that these things really make a difference in people's lives. And so then, once that was done, I did actually get to the CEO and some other people came up to talk to me just to talk about that presentation. And then, but now, because I knew that was kind of a heavy-duty topic, and I did have some funny things along the way, but I thought, if this is heavy-duty and I've got some funny things, they may not think that they're supposed to laugh. So I better get them to laugh before I do anything else. So I did is when I went up to the front, I said, I'm going to do something annoying. I'm going to act like one of the celebrities. And so I took my camera out and said, all right, everyone wave while I take a selfie. And then I did.
Oh, that's so cool.
And that was actually funny enough that
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I
And
noticed
you
the
look
people
great.
in there are going like, really? Nice applause.
like, wait, are you really doing that? And the person's got kind of the highest of the scene, which is
Right.
nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, at first nobody waved. I'm like, oh crap, this isn't working. I said, no, really, everyone wave. And then they started to do it, and I took that. And I just did it really fast because it was really meant to be more of a gag than anything else. So I didn't think it would actually turn out. But it almost looks faked because
Photoshop.
yeah, it looks like I just photoshopped myself into there. So I mean, the nice thing about that then is that even though I went off topic and just talked about personal stuff, that it went over really well.
Maybe if we were told that the target market, I mean, if you think about it, they're probably not going to be a Pride, right? And so,
Mhm. Anyone who's there, anyone who sees that we're there, like, well, they're probably not going to complain.
no, exactly. It's like we actually make conscious purchasing decisions based upon what we like.
Mhm.
We spend money at Target. We do not go to Chick-fil-A, and so
Same here. Yeah. My
Right.
daughter tells me that Chick-fil-A is one of the best places she ever been. And I says, I can't go there because of politics that they
Yeah.
have.
exactly.
I will not eat at Chick-fil-A. I will not go there. I don't care. I'm not going to spend any of my money in a place that wants to get rid of me
Mhm.
and change who I am.
Right.
And like I had a conversation once before about something like that, and I says, okay, I'll start living my life like you, but oh, by the way, you have a beard? I don't like beards. So I'd like you to have electrology because I hate beards. Dare you? And that's exactly what, and I says, you're trying to do the same to me. So,
I like that analogy with like people who have trouble with hijab, and I'm like, so you don't like people who are Amish that wear a hip on it? Like you have a problem with Amish? That like, it's really like, what's the? But anyways, I was just thinking it's the same thing. It's like,
Well,
you
I
have
used
nothing to lose and only to gain.
I did use that as an example because I said there are people because we're on the corporate equality index, the Human Rights Campaign's one, and said that I've heard from more people who are straight cis people that they use that to help make decisions because they either know people or have family members who are in the spectrum or just even use it as a proxy for being employee centric and focused. So that's a good marketing thing to have, and that's something they can use with the farmers too.
You know how there's like this whole anywhere but Target movement?
Mhm.
Right, they know that jobs. You gotta go.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for coming. Oh, you.
you're not going to dinner?
No, I already have another dinner planned.
Okay, well, congratulations, thanks for coming. And by the way,
Yes.
I really love all your posts.
Oh, thanks.
Keep them coming.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to keep it light and.
You don't have to.
Okay. Or I'll just let. Yeah.
It's nice keeping in touch with you.
Make it organic.
Organic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then. Yeah. I don't know if those beets were organic on the
Yeah,
burger.
see the word organic.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's really important.
So,
Just want to be happy.
have a good holiday.
Yeah.
We'll see you next year.
Yeah. See you next year. So we're yeah.
We're not
We're
doing
not.
Christmas Eve.
We aren't?
We are not. If you are, well, have room to yourself.
If you've seen the forecast for the next 2 weekends, you don't want to leave the house. Next Sunday's high is -4.
It's supposed
It's
to.
literally -4 from the high now next week.
You know, it's that time of year. Let it come. We've got room for it.
My whole
Speak
thing
for
is,
yourself.
if there's snow, it's okay.
I love snow.
I
No,
love
no
the
problem with
snow,
snow.
but I just don't want the cold about the snow. If you do this,
Be 25 during the day, 29. Yeah, when
Nobody
nobody breathes into that.
How much time I probably
Snow.
would have worked.
Oh.
I can't.
There you go.
We'll have another speaker on the 10th, was it the 7th or the first meeting next? Yes.
I forget.
We'll have the next meeting, we will have another guest speaker.
Cool.
So last time for me to have to talk. Damn.
Sweetest. Oh, Army won. Yeah, they broke the
Thank you.
their
Let
14
me
game
know.
losing streak against the
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah,
I believe that.
yeah,
No,
now I have
you
the
know
set
what?
running time.
14 straight wins, it's time
I really cared a lot anyway. I'm huge in it.
You don't want to leave, do you?
No, I don't want to leave. Yeah, but I want sushi and ramen and like stuff. Yeah, I'm to Moto Eye. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't have
We're gonna go now.
We drove up to Moto and obviously it was.
It's on Hanson
It's
and
a
Bunker.
bunker, yeah.
We should have.
We didn't know that.
Is it nice inside?
I don't know. We didn't go. We went to, where did we go? Applebee's, yeah.
Oh,
We
that's
decided to
good.
just go to Applebee's.
So, like,
You know, it's right there too.
It looks like it's pretty nice. They have pictures online.
Yeah, so we could do that.
One is the
It's right on 65, isn't it?
Were you all upset too when you found out Mall of America had a black singer?
Imagine that.
If he didn't have a beard, I'd have been pissed.
Why's that news?
But he had a
Yeah,
beard,
why
so
is
who
it
cares?
news?
I get it, said that.
So I picked up
He's
Google.
jolly with a beard.
I picked up Google and went,
Well, good.
where is Saint Nick originally from? Well, modern day it would be Turkey. I'm thinking, well, there's not really a whole lot of, really white people and Turkish people. I mean, not that they were born in, from generation. So odds
I'm
are,
not saying it was from like Germany or Austria.
Google it.
I don't know.
Okay, seriously.
You want to know why I'm not Googling it? Because I don't care what color Santa is, because I'm a reasonable human being.
Yay!
And because Santa's
So
not real,
you,
I think.
I'm the fish on chocolate.
Seriously, who cares?
Yeah.
It
Oh my
doesn't matter.
God.
Somebody goes, and the same person, when I did that, the same person goes, well, what would you do in mine?
Yeah, exactly.
Here,
I mean, for ignorant people, for you, like you walking away, so I just
exactly.
close to the front.
Yeah.
the line will be shorter, okay. What's the matter? People.
I like to come back. There was somebody that said they come back from what color was Jesus.
Yeah, but he wasn't born
He
lily
was
white.
Lily White.
No, he sure as hell wasn't.
And people look at him like, oh! I'm just like, well, I hate to say it, but he wasn't just.
Or when people are anti-Semite and you're like, well, actually, Jesus was a Jew. They're like, what?
Like, come on, haven't you heard the term King of the Jews? Like, come on, this is basic Christianity, people.
People just. People, you don't think. You just hear what fed into this little thing up there and, produce your own brainwave sometimes. You'll discover stuff. Meanwhile, back at Liz. What's the whole other
This is a lot of business
over
cards.
there.
Are they quiet?
He's kind of lonely over there.
I
Sad.
sat next to her last night. Don't you remember? Have you forgotten already?
But I'm closer to the TV, though.
I was down here and then finally I got
Did you watch the-
I didn't think I was excited. I thought, took a shower, I'm nicely dressed, and all of a sudden you just get up and go down there. I'm like, something
It's
like
because
that.
my feelings don't get hurt very easily unlike somebody else.
Especially when my kids and my wife haven't done not really good.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. I really think we're good. I don't want to go to eat. Sure.
Is it snowing now? I mean, it's snowing
Yeah,
kind of.
it's been 36 hours. Get over it.
It's Minnesota. It's gonna snow. You know what?
So quick.
We have room for it.
Yeah, we didn't get any
Bye,
rain
Tegan.
this year, so we need all the snow we can possibly get.
It would be nice to have white Christmas.
Oh, it would. No, I love snow. We don't need the snow, moisture for the spring. It's gonna make a mess in the snow because all the water tables are already all the way to the top. They said there's no room for anything.
Yeah,
So any snow we get after the ground freezes,
That's why all the farmers are complaining.
it's all gonna be a problem.
No.
So
Most years we want snow, not the
Farmers
farmers.
we don't normally have our swamp for
I want, yeah,